Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of Blood of the Daleks Part 1, an 8th Doctor adventure series, or the beginning of the 8th Doctor adventure series, starring Paul McGann, obviously as the 8th Doctor, and Sheridan Smith as the companion. I'd say this one, in terms of the cover, is probably definitely sort of up there for me. I kind of like the cover. It's definitely in sort of the better half of cover designs and that, and then you've got the banner as well. And then I'd like to say this is more like a Evil of the Daleks / Power of the Daleks, sort of Pat Troughton Dalek. Very reminiscent, reminds me of the bit in that Asylum of the Daleks at the beginning with the giant Dalek. On the spine you've just got Doctor Who Blood of the Daleks 1. And then you've got the cast list and the synopsis for the story, as well as how long it is, which is an hour. Then on the inside you've got a sort of almost booklet, a little booklet which kind of almost reminds me of the Titan comics, because they do little like sort of bios on some of the characters. So it goes over the 8th Doctor, Lucy Miller, and the Headhunter. Even though I'm a little bit confused with the Lucy Miller one, because I'm pretty sure she says in the story that she's 20, I think. Or maybe I wasn't listening and paying attention. Actually, she is 19. But there it says she's 19. The CD has sort of got this sort of jumper tweet-esque sort of design, sort of Time Vortex design. And removing that, you just get like a massive list of all the monthly range releases of McGann's stories, as well as the next story, Blood of the Daleks Part 2. Yeah, I've also a little bit of a weird thing that I've just got the light on in my room, and that's why the lighting's a bit weird in this video, as well as the natural light. But there's not a lot of that. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I quite like this one. It's a pretty decent starting point for this sort of series, as well as just generally for Big Finish. I think if you've not, I know someone in my Facebook group for my channel mentioned that they thought that they sort of started with Big Finish with this, and really liked Lucy Miller to the point where they'd like her in the show in the new series. I do like her character, but I think for legal reasons maybe that wouldn't work. I don't think. Weirdly enough, saying that out loud, yeah, sounds weird. But I think the character could maybe pop up in like as an image in like the Doctor's diary sort of thing, or reference, referencing her, as a character. Moving on to Lucy Miller as an actual character within the story, I think she's really cool in terms of the fact that she kind of reminds me of both Ace and Rose. She's sort of McGann's version of that, this sort of rather young, northern, sort of very sort of rebellious sort of character, and as I say, yeah, kind of reminds me of Rose or Ace. She's very sort of confrontational with the Doctors, or well, maybe not confrontational, but snippy. She isn't afraid to bite back, as it were. And as you can see, McGann there is in his 1996 TV movie sort of costume. So I like the fact that they sort of make reference of that, so you visually can picture it, but in also doing that, they do it in a comedic way. Steve Lyons does that in a comedic way, with her commenting on his stupid hair or his sort of Victorian sort of get-up, and the hair being like the wig basically, and I found that funny. This part is very much doing the heavy lifting, the sort of world building, the sort of setting up the chess pieces for the match, for the chess match, as it were, to come into in part 2. It's an hour-long story, so it's more sort of new series-esque. So again, I think if you've only ever watched the new series of Doctor Who and have never watched any classic Doctor Who, but for whatever reason you want to start with Big Finish and then go back to classic Doctor Who, this would be brilliant sort of jumping on point. Especially, I think as well, it's pretty ingenious that they had the Daleks in this, because everyone knows what the Daleks are from whatever era you're starting from. If you're going from classic to then Big Finish, or as I say, new series to then Big Finish, or just the comics to again, Big Finish, then, you know, the Daleks are in all of the other things, including, spoiler alert, but Big Finish. The Daleks are voiced by Nick Briggs, and they're pretty good. Yeah, there's some stuff that happens towards the latter end, which I won't spoil, but yeah, he's very versatile. He knows what he's doing, you know, and that it's a bit odd listening to McGann in an hour long one, in so much as it's weird to think like you could argue he's a classic series Doctor, yet weirdly enough he just fits the sort of shorter format, the sort of more snappier, very fast pace, you know, sort of format in my head. You know, don't get me wrong, he's great in the monthly range stuff, but this was him away from that, and that because I think they'd done all the Big Finish sort of monthly range stuff. Then they did this. Then they went back to the monthly range and did that little 3-part story arc thing with Mary Shelley, and then did Dark Eyes. I think I could be wrong about that. So if you know the actual chronological order, please do comment below. McGann is phenomenal. He's really good. Obviously, as an audio actor or voice actor, he's phenomenal, and he has chemistry. He could have chemistry with a wooden chair. You know, he's that charismatic as a person, as I said in my Dark Eyes review. And that I like the world building of Red Rocket Rising. You know, it kind of makes me feel like this is as close as we could ever get to sort of somewhat diving into a world that's like the Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways sort of planet Earth sort of thing. This isn't Earth, by the way, but as I say, as a comparison, that's how I picture it. You know, like kind of like if we had the budget in Series 1, what the Earth would have been like had we seen it, you know, on the ground level of, like, you know, Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways, where, you know, spoiler alert, but the Doctor fucked up with the long game and then created hell for humans. This is kind of similar, and I like the environmental sort of effect of, like, you know, acid rain and that, and yeah, I wish the TARDIS was in this more, and that, and I wish there was a bit more sort of, it being a little bit slower pace. It is very fast paced, you know, and that, which again, I think if you're used to sort of the new series, then that's fine, but if you're more into your classic series, then I think the monthly range stuff would be definitely for you, as opposed to this. It very much it sets up nicely with a few little breadcrumbs of 2, 3, maybe even 4 at most, breadcrumbs of like this idea of there's a mystery with Lucy Miller as well, and that. But I like the fact that the story doesn't just sort of stop to a halt and then just sort of, you know, sort of stop to a halt and just focus on that completely, you know. It sort of really nicely intertwines that naturally, it feels like, you know. And I like one of the side characters who's in this story, whose name I'm totally forgetting, but let's pretend I remembered his name, and I'm just trying to keep this review spoiler free. But yeah, overall, I'd give Blood of the Daleks Part 1 a 7 out of 10. It's not the best story ever, but it's sort of a good sort of world building a good part 1. There are a lot worse first parts of Doctor Who episodes out there. I think this one's one of the stronger ones, honestly. I hesitated to give it higher because sometimes it was difficult to visualize. Sometimes, you know, the audio quality and or audio design could be obviously better, but then again, it was released back in 2006, so, you know, Big Finish had only had McGann for however many years at that point, and also been around for however many years, so, you know, again, I'm criticising it, or critiquing it with the lens of someone who has had the luxury of really listening to more recent releases, and that, which I guess is not fair on this, but yeah, the theme is pretty decent, the theme song, and or design, that's pretty cool, and that, and yeah, oddly enough, this sort of story starts similarly, or somewhat similarly to the start of Great War and or Dark Eyes, in my head. It's similar but slightly different, you know? If you've listened to both these stories, then you might know what I'm on about. I feel like they start similar, but yeah, I don't know. It kind of cool little bookend, you know? Beginning of this starts this way, and then Dark Eyes starts similarly. Maybe just a little, you know, loose thread to connect it all back together, maybe, I don't know, or maybe it wasn't intentional, I don't know. But yeah, because this isn't obviously written by Nick Briggs, whereas Great Wall was. But yeah, as I say, I'd give this episode a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate, and subscribe.